Mark, and all our listeners, both of you, please indulge me in the following exercise. If you're driving, do not participate. Close your eyes and imagine an apple. All right, what do you see? Is it red? Is it shaded? Is it round? Does it have a stem? The ultimate test, can you rotate that apple? Or did you see nothing?
Welcome to It Doesn't Take a Genius.
Ramsey!
Of course I saw something. That's crazy. Everybody sees something.
Well, that's what I thought. So at the ripe old age of, let's just say, in my 60s, I have discovered that it's interesting because nobody wants to label anything anymore, but I am definitely neurodivergent.
Oh, wow. Wow. That was not the wording I would have used, for sure. What? So you alerted me to this by doing that same experiment. Maybe I don't know, a few months back, and had me do the experiment. I had no idea what you were talking about because I was like, of course I see an apple. I'm like, well, do you see it? Like, see what? See the apple? Yeah, I see the apple. You just told me about an apple, so I'm thinking about an apple in my mind. But you say that is not how it works, and it's a condition.
Yes, I have aphantasia.
Aphantasia.
Yeah, or aphantasia, depending on which part of the country you live in. So I had no idea. And so the idea is when I close my eyes and do that exercise, all I see is blackness. And come to find out, we now know that maybe 3 to 4% of people in the world cannot visualize things purposely. And all of this is news to me.
Well, I was going to say, when did you first realize that, your experience of thinking, of visualizing without visualizing was different from most people?
So I've done this exercise in workshops for the last almost 30 years now. This started when I was coaching and training volunteers. And we would talk about positive versus negative and how the mind cannot filter out the negative. If you tell somebody, do not imagine an elephant.
They're going to imagine an elephant.
Well, that's what I saw. So I would have people, I'd say, all right, close your eyes and do not imagine an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching the reaction, like I did the exercise, and everybody would be like, oh yeah, no, first thing I saw was an elephant. And I thought it was a metaphor. I thought they were telling me they thought about an elephant. And just literally within the last year, I was doing that exercise and I was studying closely people's faces. As they had their eyes closed, they were imagining the elephant. And I could tell by their faces, they were seeing something. And I was like, I think they're really seeing an elephant.
So doing this experiment for decades, and then you suddenly started realizing people are actually seeing in their head.
Yes.
Huh.
And so I was like, this is, and then I started asking people. I said, what are you seeing when I tell you not to imagine an elephant? They're like an elephant. And then I would ask some questions like, well, you can see the whole elephant. Oh yeah, its legs, its trunk, ears, the whole thing. Like, what else do you see? They go, oh yeah, the color. Right, I can see if it's gray, dark gray, light gray. I can see shading. And some of them said, oh yeah, I made it turn around. And I'm like, what demon technology is this inside their brains? What cognitive, tomfoolery is this? So So as we all do when, when we're puzzled, I Googled it. Right? You go on the Google machine, you type in, do people see images when you ask them to imagine stuff? And the Google, now it gives you the AI summary at the beginning, was like, well, yeah, dummy. 97% of people in the world see the image. However, 3 to 4% were not sure because this may be the most undiagnosed thing on the planet. 3 to 4% of people we estimate cannot do this. And it has a name. It's aphantasia. And so what's interesting about this is the word aphantasia is a great demonstration of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was first noted as I did my AI or did my Google research. It was first noted in any documentation in 1880. So in 1880, this doctor named Galton, he had figured out some people can't picture stuff. They don't have what some people call the mind's eye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he called it, he wrote a book or a little pamphlet called The Statistics of Mental Imagery. Not a very catchy name. So it was lost to obscurity. Nobody paid any attention to it. And then in 2009, this doctor named Faw, he figured this out, and he wrote a paper on wakeful non-imagers. So wakeful non-imagers. Because one of the things that they figured out about this is people with aphantasia can dream and have visual dreams. They see pictures and stories and stuff like that. It's only when they're awake that they're non-imagers.
Huh.
And so this came out of that. And so the idea of, in 2015, Dr. Adam Zeman, he came up with, he kind of stumbled upon this. So he had a patient. Mm-hmm. The patient went under anesthetic for angioplasty. And he was doing his 2-week follow-up with the guy, how'd the angioplasty go? And this guy said, I'm physically fine. However, I can no longer imagine things. I can no longer see images. And the way this guy figured it out was one of his tricks to going to sleep was he would lay in bed, and when he wanted to go to sleep, he would just imagine the faces of all the people he loved in his life. And that would make him feel peaceful and happy, and he'd drift off to sleep. And he said, since the surgery, I don't see nobody.
Wow.
It's just black. So Adam Zeman, the doctor, he wrote a little article. He wrote an article that got picked up in some obscure medical journal. And so he thought that was the end of it, right? He had this one-off case and whatever. Well, some journalist read the article and published it in, I can't remember if it was the New York Times or the New Yorker, something that's got I think it was Discovery Magazine. And all of a sudden, people started contacting Dr. Zeman saying, hey,
I got that.
I've got that, and I've had it my whole life. It didn't happen after this thing. So, do you hear a buzzing sound?
You may be hearing my wife mowing.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought it was just me.
You know what? Let me see if I can.
Oh, she's fine. Oh, there you go. It's gone. So 21 people contacted Dr. Zeman and said, hey, I got this. And so Dr. Zeman said, all right, it needs a name. Wakeful non-imagers and statistics of mental imagery are not doing it. So he contacted, you're going to love this. This is going to make you so happy. This is going to make your life. So he contacted this person in his life who was an expert on ancient knowledge, the Greek classics.
Phantasms. Yeah, I know where we're going with this.
All this stuff.
Yeah.
And this guy said Aristotle had a word for what Aristotle called the cognitive faculty that produces mental images.
Mm-hmm.
Cognitive faculty that produces mental images, which was Aphantasia.
Mm-hmm.
And so the doctor said, all right, we'll do as a student of Latin that you are, if I wanted to make it the opposite,
A at the beginning.
yeah, I add the A. So that's
Yeah.
where you get aphantasia. I don't
Yep.
have the cognitive faculty to produce mental images.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty wild, right? So, and Aristotle was wrong because he also said the soul never thinks without aphantasia.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So Aristotle thought your soul could never have a thought unless it could be pictured.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we now know, right? Aristotle didn't know, but we now know that no, you can have thoughts without images. So we know for just based upon that Aristotle,
Right.
he had the opposite of what I have probably, which would be hyperphantasia.
Yeah.
Insanely, graphic visual imagery that's almost uncontrollable. As he thinks of stuff, he's just picturing it in multiple.
Well, and
forms.
certainly much of the ancient literature, the philosophical literature would be in some sort of metaphorical form. Like think of Plato's Republic. The whole thing is, they're trying to answer what is justice. It's a very abstract concept, and he comes up with a metaphor of a city, which is the city is awfully close to a human being, and he can use that metaphor of the different parts of your body, the different parts of the city that make up a person, and how they have to work together, and so the whole thing that makes sense to me actually.
Oh yeah. Well, think about right. We were having a conversation before this recording, and we were talking about the proliferation of Mexican restaurants.
Yep.
And you automatically started. You were going to give me a count of the nearby Mexican restaurants.
Yep.
So how did you do that? What was
I
your
started
process?
in my town, and then I started going up the road to the road in between the two towns, and then I started with the northern town and what was there. I was doing an image of a map in my mind.
All right. So you saw an image of a map,
Yep.
and then were you traveling the map, or were you just jumping from place to place?
Oh, well, I had a visual of, sort of the thumbtacks on the map. You know what I mean? Like, here, here, and here.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that would be handy to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, and think about, another ancient concept, the memory palace. And for lack, very quickly and get back to you, but the idea that, I'm able to store a lot of content because I'm picturing where it is in my invisible, palace of, structure of thought in my brain. Do that with Bible passages, like I know, 2 Peter 1:3 is bottom of the right hand page, and then like you're seeing where it's at in the book. I mean, yeah, this is I'm having trouble thinking of how you wouldn't, right? Like how would you store information, have a logical argument, imagine without having images?
Oh yeah.
Imagine.
I'm not seeing it. Literally. So yeah, I remember that because I read the book. I was trying to improve my memory, and it gave me that idea, right? Or you visualize a deck of cards, and then each card represents a topic that you want to remember, or you visualize the memory palace in each room. As you walk through the room, you see the object, and that's going to remind you of the next part of your speech or whatever.
Yep.
And I was like, this is dumb. This doesn't work at all. this is terrible. I don't know what this guy's talking about. And so when you look at these tools, and even like meditation and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, close your eyes. You're on a beach. The waves are lapping onto the shore. Palm trees are swaying. And 97% of the people in that meditation are going, I am there, brother.
Yeah, yeah,
I am, I'm already here. And they're getting the physical changes that go with
yep,
laying on the beach,
yep,
right? Your mind has, your mind only knows what you send it.
yeah,
That's why when you watch a scary movie, your heart starts to speed up and
yep,
you sweat and you tense up because your brain doesn't know it's a movie. It just knows
right,
I'm sending these images in here
yeah,
and I should be reacting to them.
yeah,
So meditation, while I can sometimes turn off my mind, I'm turning off the dialogue and thinking about the attributes of a beach. More like an outline of what are the attributes of a beach. I'm not
okay,
seeing it. I'm thinking about it.
yeah,
So so one of the things that somebody said about this, they said, this is like it's like having a computer that's not hooked up to a monitor.
uh-huh,
So the computer's still working.
yeah,
It's thinking about things, but it just can't show it to anybody
right,
in,
right.
in a form. It can print out the words, but it doesn't show you the image.
So this is a workplace podcast. We're in a second here going to talk about some workplace applications. Let me just a couple things that hit me as you're talking. First off, I do wonder with the onslaught of therapeutic hallucinogens if that might be a therapy that does something that allows people to unlock it. That's for another day. But certainly those people are seeing images. I've been hearing about people microdosing stuff and seeing images at work. It's terrifying.
Well, just to address that one before you go
Yeah.
to the next one, if you look in the comments, right, there's now a TED talk on aphantasia. Dr. Adam Zeman, he gives a TED talk on it now, and there's other things, and that's one of the most frequent comments is, has anybody tried this
Yeah.
with psychedelics, psilocybin, ayahuasca, whatever,
Yep.
and did it awaken that ability in people?
Yeah.
And right now there's no answer. Nobody's studied it yet. So your question is great. It's a question that's being asked, but this is also new that nobody's figured that out yet.
It Doesn't Take a Genius does not endorse nor recommend that anyone actually take drugs that would get them in trouble. Okay. Anyway,
Yes.
moving on.
Thank you.
The next question is it just images? Is it audio? Is it smell? Is it touch that you can't recall into your brain?
That's another thing that comes up, right? So there's sensory aphantasia,
Yeah.
and apparently I have that because I cannot imagine a smell.
I got
right?
that too.
Yeah. So it is a spectrum.
Okay.
So you get everything from you tend to be more typical, right? You can imagine things, you see them in color.
Right.
It's pretty vivid. I think you had a little trouble rotating the object.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
you could rotate it, which this is such a magic trick to my brain. And so then there's people who I see it, but maybe it's not three-dimensional. It's in color, but it's kind of flat,
Yeah.
right? And then the next level that I see it, but it's grayscale. It's black and white.
Yeah.
Not a lot of dimension to it. And then there's people who have a vague outline of the object. And then there's people like me, pitch black, plus no smell, no color, no touch.
Wow.
Right? What they call haptic deprivation. So but
Jeez.
apparently people can imagine these things.
I'm going to tell on myself. I have a Ziploc bag. Your parents give you a box of keepsakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I stuck into those keepsakes a Ziploc bag with the Speed Stick Fresh Scent deodorant that I was wearing my senior year of high school. I was like, I bet this will be a core memory for me. And I can sort of smell it right now as I think about it, like what it smelled like.
Wow.
But when I open that bad boy up, it is 1995, baby, spring of '95. So And I guess, I'm literally, that's not recalling it, but I knew enough to know that, putting it in that bag that would work. And I can tell you what it smells like right now. I can sort of, reimagine that. So,
That, see, that's a magic trick. I can do the same thing logically. I
right.
can remember, okay, there were, like what a new car smells like.
Yep.
I know I like it. I know it's leather and, different, glues and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's as far as it goes.
Okay, so now let's talk about the thing that I know about you, because this is a workplace podcast. Up till now, people are like, what are we doing here? Are we suddenly a psychology podcast? No, this is a workplace application, because what I want to ask you is, do you see this as a superpower? Because here's what I know about you. The whole time I've been working with you for, however many, what did we add up, 22 years, something like that at this point?
2+ decades.
Yeah, 2+ decades. You have been really good about taking photos. So you would take photos of flip charts. You would take photos of teams of people. You would take photos of what the workplace looked like, what the service bays looked like. And I always thought he's so clever because he's storing up all these things that he can recycle and bring into presentations that show, like, look, guys, here's a continuity of what you've been doing as a client. You've made this progress. Here's where we started. Here's where we are now. In my mind, it was a superpower. I'm now realizing you needed a way to remember it.
Yeah, I couldn't picture it
Yeah.
after I'd left the room. Right, and then it would happen where I'd have to, like I'd train in a room and I'd have to set it up, how I wanted it for that particular training, and
Yep.
then I may not go back there for 3 months,
Yeah.
and then I'd say, all right, we're having training. It's going to be in the same room you were in 3 months ago. How do you want it set up?
Yep.
I have no idea. Like I can't
Right.
picture it. So I would go back to my photos and go, oh, I had 3 tables here, 2 tables here. I had 2 screens.
Yeah.
I could remember. I could remember the count. I could remember how many tables. I could remember, the general layout. I knew I had 2 screens, but where they were in relationship to each other, and seeing that, absolutely not there.
Fascinating.
And so, same with, people, and I've thought about this, right? Because I have pictures of almost every audience I've ever trained.
Mm.
If it's going to be a repeat thing where I'm
Yep.
going to train multiple times to the same group, the first thing I always do, and you've seen me doing it 100 times, you're in half the photos. I say, all right, this is a big deal. This is a monumental, kickoff to this training, and I take pictures of everybody in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun. People get a kick out of it, and like I said, it's really fun to have. Like at the last day of training, say we do
Yeah.
8 sessions, and the 8th session, I can put those pictures up and go, "Wow, here's what we
Yep.
looked like when we began this journey."
Yep.
For me, it's like I have to go
I
back
gotta
and
have it.
review. I have to review those photos because one of the downsides of aphantasia is statistically we have a much higher problem with face recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So you can picture somebody and then you can remember them and then you can associate the name with them. I can't picture them, so it's very difficult for me to remember their name. And it's got a big long name. It's prosopagnosia, something like that. So,
Huh.
which means, yeah, poor face recognition. And
So
so when
that
you remember people, when you think of,
I'm thinking of him in my head right now. As you know.
and can you see their face?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is so cool, dude.
I can animate it. Like I can see how they move and stuff. Yeah.
Wow, see, that would be useful.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but here's what I don't do is I don't keep a good record because you don't remember every face and name. And if I did what you did, I'd be able to go back and go, oh yeah, that's Bob. I haven't interacted much with Bob, but I need to remember Bob. Next time I go in and talk to Bob about XYZ. I don't have that. You've compensated in a way that's given you. I mean, in a way, it's a little bit of a superpower, as these things often are. And I believe you've told me that you've even realized that the ability to not visualize things from your past has actually helped you in other ways.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, what are the what are the upsides to this?
Right.
I'm not Rain Man. I can't,
Yep. Yep.
I can't memorize decks of cards or anything. But I do have SDAM or Saddam, right? So SDAM, which stands for Severely Deficient Autobiographical Memory. And so I figured this out because I have a Facebook group and it's the people I graduated high school with.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always talking about, Mr. Johnson in the third grade
Mm.
and what he looked like and who else was there and where they sat. I have no recollection of the third grade,
Huh.
like zero. And so I'm reading these people are writing in very specific detail about fourth grade, sixth grade, remember this. And
Yep.
I'm like, no, I know I was in third grade. It's the best 2 years of my life. But yeah, I don't picture it. And then I get to figure out these people see it. They can
Mm.
imagine, right? They
Yeah.
remember that homecoming dance. They remember the gym. They remember the parade float we built. And not only do they remember it, they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, okay, that's pretty weird, but it's kind of like hiding your own Easter eggs. Like, hey, when people bring it up, you're like, oh, I'd
Oh
forgotten all
yeah.
about that. Yeah, that was a cool thing. Now that you bring it back to my memory. The plus side of this is people with aphantasia have very low PTSD. We have very low trauma, and we tend to hold very few grudges. So, in my life, right, I've seen some horrific stuff. I've
Mm-hmm.
been the first person to some fatal car accidents.
Mm.
I watched my father, take his last gasping breaths.
Mm-hmm.
I saw my brother on the floor,
Mm.
dead.
Mm-hmm.
And while I remember these things, I don't see them.
You don't visualize those
Yeah,
things.
I don't have any mental imagery of that. I can tell you the attributes of it. I can tell you where my father was and he was wearing, hospital
Yep.
gown and stuff like that. But people who have trauma, when they think of these things, not only do they think of them like I do, they see them.
And they're reliving them
Yeah,
in
and there
some
again, the
sense.
body
Yeah.
thinks this is happening again, and then the
Yep.
body responds in the same manner, right?
Yep.
The chemicals in your brain, the stress hormones all
Mm-hmm.
reappear again.
Yep.
Well, I don't get that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I remember it. I remember, what it looked like, but I don't re-experience in a vivid mental way. And so therefore I kind of just am able to, I think, deal with it better
Yeah.
than people who take much longer to get over these things because, and you've heard people say it, right? Somebody who's lost somebody, they go, every time I close my eyes, I see their face.
Yep.
I'm like, nope,
Nope.
nope. Every time I close my eyes, I might think about them,
Yeah.
but it's not as traumatic to my system.
Fascinating. So, I guess, you've probably not had a conversation with a client yet. I mean, 3 to 4% still pretty low, but you haven't had a client yet who said, "Hey, I'm that way."
I did have one just recently.
No kidding.
So I was telling a story, and I prefaced the story with, there's about 25 managers in the room. I prefaced the story with, I have very poor autobiographical memory, but
Mm-hmm.
I do recall this one instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I shared a story that was apropos to the training. And at the end of the workshop, everybody gets up and leaves except one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes up to me and he goes, tell me more about not remembering things in your past.
Huh.
And I said, yeah, I've got, aphantasia and stuff like that. And he's just shaking his head. And he's like, oh my gosh. He goes, I think I have that. He says, I've got two brothers, and every time we're together, they just talk in extreme detail about stuff we've done in the past together. And I don't remember any of that.
Wow.
So I gave him the apple test, right?
Uh-huh.
And you guys could all do this, right? I said, close your eyes and imagine an apple. What do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because he he didn't realize it, but he started going, okay, it's red, it's got a stem. But he was saying it so dryly, I knew he wasn't picturing it.
Hmm.
And so I just called him. I go, are you seeing it or are you just telling me what an apple looks like? He goes, I was just telling you what an apple looks like. He goes, that's just what I do. And he's like, wait, I have it. And he was so excited. This was right before Father's Day. And he was so excited because his brothers were coming back into town. And he's like,
Guess what, guys?
I can't wait to get them all together and tell them this is remarkable. It all makes so much sense now. He was just so ecstatic that he couldn't understand it, but now he had an answer to why everybody in his, immediate family had this, and he seemed to, like, he didn't know what was wrong with him. He thought something was wrong.
Yeah. Well, so I guess the only other question I wanted to ask you, because I've been wanting you to do this episode for a long time, so I've sort of been storing up some things to talk about. But in terms of it's obviously something that you've adapted to without even knowing that you had it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you know that you have it, has it changed the way you interact in your professional life or just life in general? Or is it more of just the penny has dropped, I understand what's going on now? Or have you actually had a behavior change since doing this?
Well, I would definitely say the thing that you mentioned about just, I'm really at peace with how it works and how I work. And it also gave me great understanding and maybe empathy towards what other people are experiencing.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was very helpful to think, okay, when you're recounting a tough time in your life, it's really hard on people because they're actually seeing it as well as describing it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, I need to ramp up my empathy here because they're going through something I don't go through.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I went back to some of the memorization techniques, and I thought, all right, I'm going to try and do faces better. And so I watched some videos, read up on it, one of those things where you pick out a feature on a person and then you imagine their name on that feature. Right. They wear glasses and their name is sitting on top of those glasses. They have, a high forehead, and so their name is, here. And
you're saying this is an aphantasia technique?
Well, it's a memorization technique that I wanted to see if I could do to get rid of my prosopagnosia or whatever it is.
Okay.
My poor facial recognition.
Yep.
Absolutely doesn't work. Nope.
Still got to visualize if you're going to do it. So
yeah. So it's like, and I would do it while I was talking to somebody. Like, I met somebody new. I'm imagining their name on their face, just like the technique, says it's supposed to work. Because then when I'm not around them anymore, I don't see the face, so I can't see the name.
Right.
So the whole thing just goes away.
Yep.
And you're like, all right, that didn't help. So yeah, I've been trying some stuff.
Yeah.
To improve professionally, but so far I haven't found a lot that's helped me at this point.
So this is, I wonder if this might be something worth trying, but for me, it is the image, but I need to tie the image not to a name, which is kind of generic. I need to tie it to a story. So now sometimes the name has a story behind it, and I happen to know that story. I just memorize name meanings because it's fascinating to me. So I'll be able to pull that in, and the story, as our friend John Cassava says, the story is storage. So it's a way to solidify it in my brain that there's a narrative here that I can follow. And I'll give you an example. If I meet anybody named Ben, right, the first thing I'm thinking about is in the Bible, when Jacob, his wife, is dying in childbirth, she names the kid Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow. And he says, no, Benjamin, son of the right hand. We're going to give him a name of power because I know what it's like to have a bad name. I think that's what he was saying because he gets his name changed. His name was awful. But so I'm picturing son of the right hand when I picture somebody who's named Ben. But other times it's just like literally there's a story, that I've heard from them. How many times have we sat down over dinner and I'm like, did you ever talk to so-and-so? Did you know that they used to be a professional wrestler or, something crazy like that? And you'd paint that story. So to me, that was that, the images are there, but that doesn't necessarily mean I've tied it to a name until I've, got a story in there. So for what that's worth, I don't know if that applies.
No, that is fascinating because we do remembering stories is kind of like reading a book. So that might I might be able to tie the textual piece of that to that person.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
Well, anyway,
that's like I said, I'm open to experiments because
sure.
I know there are things that I could do better. Right, there are some things like we talked about, some good things that come with this. One of the interesting things that people talk about, if you really want to have fun with this, go on YouTube and bring up a video on Aphantasia. You don't even have to watch the video. Just start reading the comments. The comments, first of all, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of comments. And they all go something like this. I was, insert age, I was 72 years old. A lot of them are older. I was 80 years old, 70 years old. And I just figured out that I have this. And then they'll tell some story about how they figured it out. And so you just story after story. And then probably half of the comments say the same, almost the exact same thing. They say, I thought when people said, all right, picture this in your head, that was a metaphor.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a phrase that that people used and that they weren't actually picturing in their heads. They were just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I now know that when people say picture this in your head, that people picture it in their head.
All these freak shows are seeing things. It's crazy, man.
So the comments are just hysterical, how they found out, and it's so frightening because most of them, like I said, this thing really wasn't named until 2015.
Right.
So there people are like, I'm 80 plus years old, and I just figured out that this is how I've lived my life. And one of my favorite comments is people will write, I've read a book and then I've gone to the movie and I have never once said, that's not how I pictured them in the book.
Yeah.
So apparently when people read books, right, fiction books, when the author is describing stuff, people see it.
So this is, allow me to take a very brief little tangent here that ties back to our last episode talking about the dangers of AI and the power of the images that it builds.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I had read Lord of the Rings. When the movies came out, I said that's a travesty, and I was especially harsh on Kate Blanchett being cast as Galadriel. I said that's not at all how she should look. Now, here's what's fascinating. I thought that, that was because it was messing with how I visualized the book, right? Right? Like I read this book several times. I've got an image in my head. Well, somebody hit me, and in the moment they said, well, who should it be, Mark? And I said, without missing a beat, without even thinking about it, I said, Kim Basinger. And even as it came out of my mouth, I was like, what the heck? Why do you think Kim Basinger would be a good Galadriel, queen of, this whole elf kingdom in a sense? It's not really fair, but she's a nobility of the elves. Well, here's why. As a child, I had seen the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
It gets worse. The Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings did not feature Kim Basinger. But I had seen a commercial for a terrible Ralph Bakshi film where he basically gets a main character gets inserted into an animated world, and he basically hangs out with a pornographic rotoscoped version that was played by Kim Basinger. My brain had taken those images from two Ralph Bakshi movies and had put them together and had decided that was, that's what needed to be the truth in my head. Images are so powerful that they can take over and tell you that that's what reality is. Now back to you. You don't have that problem.
No, as you're talking, I'm thinking as another superpower, what a time saver this is.
That's right.
Yeah, like you spend a lot of time on that, right? Wait, weaving these images together and thinking about it. Like,
well, but that's I will say
I got none of that.
I didn't do any like consciously like let's put it together. Like it just
Right.
The images go in and they're stuck, man.
But you used processing power.
I used processing power to figure out what a travesty I'd done to myself by these
Yes.
by these movies. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've never done that.
well, so I'm dying to know if anybody listening to this now realizes, oh, the Apple test doesn't work on me either. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping we hear from somebody that can tell us that we've helped them diagnose themselves, because that would be awesome.
Oh, it would be amazing. And here's one more test. If the Apple test doesn't do it for you, another test that Dr. Zeman is using is just ask somebody to tell you how many windows are in their house. And he says people with aphantasia will start logically thinking through, but people with Fantasia, they will start to picture each room.
Yeah.
And they'll start to look around, and then they'll count the windows. And then they'll go into the next room.
Yep.
Count the windows. So if you can do that, you are not in my club. You're not part of my tribe. But if you have to think about it logically or can't do it,
yep,
there's a chance that you're a wakeful non-imager.
Amazing.
Which is, I like aphantasia much better.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.